Hi, this is TJ with urlaw.org. I want to do a quick overview of something that I get asked a lot. One of the questions I get asked about is, how do I sign something? If I want to get a driver's license or sign a check or sign a contract or, uh, sign something at the DMV, sign a tax form, sign a legal offer like an indictment or a judgment or something like that. Any of those types of things. First of all, you have to consider the context and your intent. Now, this is not legal advice. I'm just sharing with you what definitions are. And then you have to go look these definitions up, or it could bite you in the butt if you're not being careful. You have to decide these things. So I'm going to go through over here to just one format. You can use many formats. You could use Perplexity or ChatGPT, but I'm using Copilot for this example. So I'm going to go through and look at the different definitions. And then you consider what context you would use those in. It's very important to understand there's not a bullet point answer for this. There's not like, how do I sign everything? That I sign things differently depending on the context. I mean, let's just start with if I sign a check. Well, the check has a signature line on it already, and it says in the fine print of the line, it says authorized representative or something to that effect. So it's already qualified. You're the authorized representative for that account to release funds from that account. It's no more mystical and strange than that. If you put anything else on there, you could actually cancel out the check, and I'll show you that in a minute. You don't want to do that if you're really trying to write a check and just help somebody have access to it. But let's use this one for example. Let's go to, I'm using Copilot. The first thing I looked up was without prejudice, often used in legal context to indicate that a statement or documents cannot be used as evidence in court. This allows parties to negotiate the attempt to settle disputes without fear that their words will be used against them later. Now, this is one I and many people like a lot. If you just use this, you don't want to sign it with something else. If you say all rights reserved without prejudice, it's almost canceling it out. No, if you just use without prejudice, along with your signature on the signature line of whatever the document is, that's the legal effect. Don't believe me? Go look it up yourself. I'm not telling you what it means. I'm just telling you what I found when I looked it up. Okay, you go look it up. Okay, so I've actually had seen this used in courts where a document was signed, and certainly they came back and they kind of freaked out. They said, "Hey, what is this? You're not accepting liability." I said, and my response is always the same whenever he challenges my signature, because that's part of the signature is, um, what does it mean? Well, my signature is essentially saying, yeah, well, I accept your offer, but with the limitation that I'm not going to accept liability for it. And then I'll say this every time: are you giving me legal advice? Because my legal counsel says that's how I should sign things. So once again, are you giving me legal advice? And if you are, I'm going to need your oath of office and your bond information for a claim for violating my rights. It's that simple. You had that little quick bullet point. That's the one thing you got to remember is kind of how to respond. Are you giving legal advice? My legal counsel says to do it this way. And by the way, I'm not your legal counsel. I'm telling you, you go look it up and you decide. You're your legal counsel. You are your best advocate. So without prejudice is a very powerful one to use for many things. If you're signing some sort of agreement that could be binding, like maybe a release from jail, okay, things like that. Now, let's talk about uh, without without recourse. If I can type recourse, let's see what that comes up with. Used in a financial or legal context to indicate that one party cannot seek compensation or legal action against another if something goes wrong. Now, there are certain types of agreements you might want to sign like that. Now, again, the other party might not accept it, but you can simply say, are you giving me legal advice? Because that's how my legal counsel requires me to sign such things. So once again, are you giving me legal advice? And if you are, you need to give me your oath of office and or your bond information. Your bond is the insurance, because if they harm you, you can make a claim against their insurance. When you put things in that context, people back off. Okay, they can't tell you what your signature is. I'm going to show you that here in a minute. You'll see that legally anything you put on that line is a signature. So they can't define it for you. They might say you can't do that, and I'll always say, "Gee, that's weird. I just did it. That is really strange how I just did that." So without recourse has a really powerful meaning. How about all rights reserved? Again, I'm not telling you to write all rights reserved without recourse or with recourse. No, you do one or the other. UCC 1-308. If you look that up on the web, the internet, some people put UCC 1-308, but that doesn't have a meaning. That's a code. That's just the number before the definition. You need to use the words. That's very important. The words of the contract. When you rely on the code, that's a U.S. code. Maybe you're not in a U.S. jurisdiction. Why would you use that? Never put the code down. Just put the words. So, all rights reserved. Now, this one is quite different. People use it, really, I think, for the wrong purposes frequently. It says that it's a copyright notice indicating that copyright holder retains all the rights provided by the copyright law. Now, if you're not dealing with the copyright matter, why would you be using all rights reserved? I know it sounds good, but don't you want to use a more precise meaning like without recourse or without prejudice, depending on the context of what you're signing? Okay? Like if you're signing something with the DMV, I might sign without recourse. They don't like it, and I always have an answer, and it always works. Now, sometimes they'll push back harder. You have to go to a different person. They may even have a little rule saying you can't sign that way. Well, then sign anyway, but put that above your name or after the name, something like that. You got to find your own way. There's no flat answer for every situation. You don't need to fear, though, doing these things because it's there in the law. Okay? What's another one? Oh, this one's meaning of void. This is one that's really getting more use these days, I'm hearing from people. And because it simply means that if I write legally void on it, either instead of my signature or behind my signature or above my signature, however you want to do it, it's not legally binding. So if you sign a DMV contract for a driver's license, I'm okay. See, I'm one of the guys that doesn't say run from the system and get out of the system. I say just control your contracts in the system. That's something we teach at our website, urlaw.org. But you don't want to run from the system. You want to use the system. So when I sign a contract, that signature is a big storyteller for how I'm going to manage that down the road. But I want it to be not legally binding. Okay, I want it to be empty or vacant. Okay, so if it's void, it's because the contract you're signing probably has problems, but you're accepting it anyway with a scribble, but you're also putting a void mark on there. Now again, could you just use the word void as your signature? Some have. I'm not saying what you should do. It's up to you. Or you write your name and then void after that. Okay? Again, if they tell you you can't do that, you just kind of say, well, that's weird. I just did. And by the way, my legal counsel says to do it that way. Are you giving me legal advice? Because if you're giving me legal advice, I need to get your bond and insurance information in case I'm harmed by it. Usually they'll just back off. All right? So void is really a powerful one to use with a lot of signatures, especially on those things you don't want to have come back on you. Without prejudice is similar, but void is more specific. Again, it's up to you how you want to do it. I'm going to look up one other thing that's important to understand. 1 USC 1. You can look this up also on Cornell Law to get more information. But the bottom line is, you get down to this part where it talks about signature. There it is, the first code in the United States Code. What do you think might be important for everything that follows it? So the term signature or subscription includes a mark when the person is making it intended as such. So in other words, wherever you put there, that's your intent. It's your right. It's your intent. It's a mark. If I put an X there, that's a signature. If I put void there, that's a signature. If I write without prejudice, that's a signature. If that's all I write, even without the name, that's a signature. But it does modify the contract to my desired intent. If you want to get free in this system, you got to know the law and look up things. Don't ask me, what should I do? I never give that answer. It's up to you to understand what you're signing and what your intent is. If you look up a few definitions, you'll figure it out for yourself. So again, that's sort of the mindset that we try to teach people over at our website, urlaw.org. So I hope you'll visit us, check out our membership options, and we'll see you on the next video.